This video will be concerned with human resource planning and related topics within the human resource field. First of all, the planning section should ensure that the organisation has the right number of employees and that they are available at the right time. So it's important to have the correct number of employees, that there are no gaps in the employee structure of the business. There are no functions that are not being properly serviced, and that the work runs smoothly throughout the organisation because there are employees in place and they're there at the right time to ensure that the overall efficiency of the organisation is maintained and even improved. It's also the case that the employees have to have the right qualifications and they have to have the right mentality, the right application towards the job. So it's not just having the right number of employees or having them there at the right time, they have to be the right sort of employees as well. And it's the HR planning section that should set out to achieve this. It should research the current number of employees and the demand for human resources. The human resource planning section should be aware of what's happening in the labour market, where there are skills shortages, for example, and the type of skills that are available in the labour market. And wherever these are short, wherever it's difficult to recruit people with specific skills, perhaps the organisation may need to put into place some sort of development plan, which we'll talk about in a few moments. A development plan which will compensate for the lack of skills generally, so that the employees are trained on the job. But the HR department should be aware of what skills are available in the labour market and try to acquire the people with the right skills, the right qualifications, that are interested in the job and that are available. Now, the human resource planning, well, the requirement is to recruit people who are effective and efficient. That they, in other words, they can do the job, they're effective. They can complete the tasks. They can take on the task and complete the task. They're effective. But they're efficient. They can take on the task and do it efficiently. So they have skills to do the job efficiently. And they are properly motivated to deliver the product efficiently. So the employees should be sufficiently trained. Now, they may come into the organisation with skills and competencies that have acquired through courses and through education and through experience in other jobs. But they need to be trained in-house as well, perhaps. So there is an issue for the HR planning section, which may be a small section within the HR department itself, and this planning section may be looking at developing the skills and how to develop the skills. It's also imperative that the planning section meets the requirements of the law. So they must recruit according to the requirements of the law. It should be non-discriminatory. So they can't discriminate on the basis of race or colour or gender or age. They should take people in terms of their skill sets and their suitability to complete the tasks that they are required to be completed. So it's important that the HR section are aware of the law and set out to meet its requirements. Now, in terms of recruitment, the recruitment process begins when an organisation feels that they need an additional member of staff. In other words, when there's a gap in the organisation, when there are tasks that are not being met fully, or there's inefficiency because there is a breakdown somewhere in the system, the work is not flowing smoothly, there are gaps, and perhaps some existing members of staff are asked to multitask, to do two different roles, because there's a shortage, there's a gap in the labour market, in the labour force I should say. Now, when that happens, that is the start of the recruitment process. That's the identification that there is an extra member of staff required. So the human resource department is responsible for the recruitment of the person to fill the gap, but it has to be the right person. It can't be any person, so they must have a good job specification, a good job description which will generate the job specification, and it should be clear and it should help potential applicants to identify whether they want to do that job, whether they want to work for that company, and whether they have the correct skills that are required by the job. The recruitment process begins by, first of all, establishing the vacancy, by identifying the gap, as I said, in the organisation. If the work is not running smoothly or efficiently, there may be the requirement to have an extra member of staff, an extra employee, who will undertake certain tasks which will facilitate greater efficiency and greater throughput, greater productivity within the business. So it's identifying the gap which creates the vacancy. And then advertising the vacancy, either internal or external advertisements. Internal normally means putting the vacancy, the description of the vacancy, on internal notice boards and notifying the workforce that there is a vacancy, so that they may know someone who's currently looking for employment and who have the particular skills, or they may have a member of their family who is looking for employment and have the skills. Now, the advantage of this, of course, is that it's cheap. They don't have to advertise in the press, and they don't have to pay agency recruitment fees. So the agents are not required, and there's no expenditure on expensive advertisements or advertisements in newspapers. Or alternatively, of course, it could be external advertisements. External means going to the press and going to recruitment agencies and bearing those costs to try and find the right person for the task. Clearly, this depends on the nature of the vacancy. If it is a general work vacancy, it may be done internally. If it's a highly specialist task, then it may require agents to find the right person. So it depends on the nature of the vacancy. The selection process, well, it's important that the section, the recruitment section, look at the submitted CVs, or if they're not CVs, there may be application forms which are a substitute for CVs. The curriculum vitae of the applicants is important because it specifies or explains what the background of the person is. It gives an account for the background of that person in terms of their education, their work experience, a little on their background as well, what they're like as a person, and whether they will fit into the organisation. So it's important that the HR section review the CVs and try to judge whether what's presented in the CV meets the requirement for the vacancy. They must also, of course, establish the interviews and select the panel who's going to interview the applicants, and may even give some guidance as to what questions to ask and what areas to probe during the interviews. They may also require candidates to undertake certain activities, for example psychological testing, or go to attend assessment centres that are set up to look deeper into people's motivations and their capacities and their problem solving skills and so on. And of course also looking at the references that have been brought forward by the applicant. They may have two referees who support their application. Now the HR department may want to contact the referees and ask for any supplementary comments or ask for clarification about something that was written in the reference itself. So the recruitment process must be taken seriously. It's also the function of the HR department to undertake performance appraisal. This means evaluating an employee's performance, looking at the employees and trying to gauge how they're performing. It normally starts when the employee first starts the business. They have an interview perhaps with the line manager or with the departmental head, or even a small panel including a member of the HR section, and their targets are set out, what they need to achieve in the next 6 months or the next year, whatever the time period agreed is for the performance appraisal. So their targets are set out, and they will be measured according to whether they achieve those particular targets or not. So the HR people will review the employee's performance and perhaps develop an action plan in the case of any shortfall. If the employee fails to meet certain targets, perhaps they need supplementary support or additional help, and an action plan may be put in place by the HR section. The performance appraisal should also look at the career goals of the individual. What does the individual want to do? Where do they want to be? What sort of job do they want? What sort of responsibility do they want? And it should identify any training and development needs that is mutually beneficial to the employee and also to the organisation. So everyone's a winner. The organisation will get a more skilled individual, someone who's more highly motivated, and the individual will also feel more motivated because they feel there's greater job security and the job itself is more interesting. It's also the case that performance appraisal develops techniques for performance improvements. So it may be that in discussions with the employee certain techniques are suggested. It may be quite simple, straightforward techniques, saying well, before the particular task is attempted, look at the prerequisites and look at what is required specifically and make sure that you are familiar with all of the functions that will be required before attempting to actually do the particular task. It may be as straightforward as that. But develop techniques for performance improvements. And also establish rewards for the level of performance achieved. When employees perform a task and it's well done, it's good quality and it's done efficiently, some reward could be given. It doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be in the form of a bonus. It could be a well done from the departmental manager. Congratulate the person and thank them. It doesn't cost anything, but it greatly improves morale, and it promotes motivation. Well, of course, alternatively, it may be financial. There may be a reward given for a job well done. Now, human resource development. Well, employees are regularly provided with training to develop skills, knowledge, attitudes to work. And these all improve performance. The idea is that the workforce is not static. It's a developing resource. The workers are people, and as people they need to be motivated, they need to apply themselves, they need to be interested. And it's important that the Human Resource Department recognise this and take steps to ensure that the workforce are adequately trained and motivated. So this looks at the skills of the workforce, the knowledge, their attitude to work, and tries to improve it. Career planning and development initiatives. Well, these help employees reach career goals and aspirations. This may be done during the performance appraisal, when the employee has an opportunity of stating what sort of career planning they have in mind and what do they want to do in the long run and what is their ambition. And then develop initiatives to try and meet those career aspirations, so that the employee feels that the organisation is supporting him or her. And as a consequence, the employee is loyal to the organisation and is also more motivated. Provide career planning and development needs to enhance the organisation and the employee efficiency. It's a two-edged sword, development. On the one hand, it's developing the employees to become more motivated and more interested and loyal to the organisation, and developing their skills and their aptitudes and their efficiency, so the employees feel much more committed. On the other hand, it's helping the organisation by getting in a more efficient workforce with greater labour retention. The type of development that's offered to the employees may be an issue. If it's developing generic skills, wide skills in an area, then the organisation may be paying for employment which will be used by other organisations should the employee leave. On the other hand, if it only develops in-house skills that are specific to its own routines and functions, then the training may be seen as boring and not motivating and very work dominated. So there's a tension, a balance to be struck, and it's important that the Human Resource Department think carefully about the type of development that they're going to offer. Now, encouraging employee motivation. Well, ways in which the organisation aims to reduce absenteeism and high labour or high employee turnover, and reducing demotivation at work. So motivation is the trick. Motivation is the way forward. Motivating the employees should reduce absenteeism, workers having days off and calling in sick and so on. Highly motivated workers will want to stay with the organisation, so there's not the need to have constant recruitment because the existing workers are loyal to the organisation and they're motivated. So it's important to have motivational activities, better communications, recognition at work, rewards, and job rotation to keep workers interested, in job enlargement if that's what's required, making the job bigger and giving workers responsibility and trusting the workers. So the organisations must ensure that employees are satisfied with their job and their working conditions and their working environment. If they're not satisfied with their job, their working conditions or their work environment, they will leave. And that will involve more costs in recruitment and selection. So it's important that the right people are kept and the right people are motivated. So motivating employees is a vital aspect in order for organisational success. It's important that the workers within the organisation are motivated. Now, employees can be motivated, as I said earlier, by making their job more interesting, by listening to employee suggestions about the job itself, about what's happening within the job, within the routine of the job. Because the workers know the job well, so they may come up with some good ideas to improve the efficiency of the job. And they should be adequately rewarded. And workers need self-esteem. They need to be praised. They're humans. If they come up with a good idea and it's been adopted, they should be given credit for that. Now, compensation. Well, this is a reward technique in order to motivate employees. So it's a reward technique. Monetary rewards such as salary and bonuses. Rewarding employees with pay impacts employees' motivation and the organisational performance. So having a scheme in which employees receive a bonus for work well done, for deadlines being met on time, and for high levels of customer satisfaction with the quality of the product. These are ways in which motivation can be fostered and promoted. But there are other benefits that can go with the job as well. For example, life insurance and awards, and holiday offers, promotion schemes, medical insurance, maternity pay. I don't mean the statutory, I mean extra rewards in terms of maternity pay and pension schemes, and so the company could be seen as generous, perhaps Christmas bonuses and that sort of thing. And these will impact on motivation. Develop attractive compensation packages motivates employees. It also develops the organisation's images and increases employee retention. So good packages, good reward packages are seen as highly motivational, but they also mean that word gets round that it's a good company to work for. The workers are proud of the company for which they work. They feel that they are respected and they feel that they're a part of the company. So there's greater employee retention, which is also cost saving, of course. Now, employee relations. Well, this aspect deals with employee attitudes to work and employee and organisation relationship. So employee relations is about the attitude that the workers have towards the company. These can be positive or negative. And it's the role of the HR section to try and ensure that the employees see the business in a positive light. The employees and the organisation need to cooperate together to develop a successful working environment. If the organisation and the employees are not getting along, then that leads to inefficiency. It leads to frustrated orders. It leads to poor quality output, which could lead to the end of the organisation. It could lead to redundancies and to unemployment. So it's important that the employees and the organisation see eye to eye and are pulling in the same direction and supporting each other. Adequate HR policies and procedures need to be put into practice. Employees need to be able to effectively communicate to supervisors and management. Trust, morals, and job satisfaction. In other words, that there is trust and that they're not going to be cheated by the management. There is a morality aspect, that the workers are going to put in a fair day's work in exchange for a fair day's pay. And there is recognition on the part of management that the workers are making a good contribution and trying hard to develop the image and reputation of the business with the customers. There must be policies regarding sexual harassment, alcohol abuse, theft, misconduct. So there have to be policing policies established by the HR section as well, and these should be carefully designed, and legal advice should be sought to ensure that the organisation is behaving appropriately and in accordance with the requirements of the law. Now, managing diversity, well, ensuring employees are provided with equal opportunities. Employment should be non-discriminatory. It should be based on skills and skill sets and competencies and ability to do the job, not on cultural backgrounds or lifestyles or whatever. It should be the ability of the worker to perform the functions required by the job. It's important that HR policies are in line with government legislation regarding working conditions, health and safety, for example, job requirements and health and safety, as I just said, and also issues about discrimination and racism. So it's important that the HR department take on board what the law states, and the spirit of the law indeed, and have policies designed to cope with these issues should they arise. Human resource management need to be aware of the fact that there is a multicultural environment and their organisation needs to be able to adapt to these changes. So society is not static, society is evolving. There's greater recognition now of the contribution of women in the labour force. And there's also recognition of the pressures that women come under in terms of family commitments and meeting careers and job requirements. And flexibility is required on the part of the employer to help facilitate the requirements of family and the requirements of work. And where there is flexibility, and in many cases there can be flexibility, then that promotes the image of the organisation and it improves efficiency, because over half the workforce is female. So it's important that companies recognise the important contribution of all parts of the labour force potentially, and ensure it has policies to facilitate the employment of people from different sections of society. Human resource management is a vital aspect of the organisation's success. Businesses need people. People do things. People complete the tasks. People design the products. People make the products. It's people who do it. So it's important that people should be at the centre of the focus of the organisation. It's people who do it. So having a specialist department, a human resource department, is important. That department deals with the people, deals with the workers. It's important that all of the human resource functions are adhered to appropriately. It's important that planning is done effectively and that there are good training programs. It's important that recruitment is done professionally and in accordance with the law and also the requirements of the organisation, and it's done fairly in the eyes of the applicants. So it needs thought. It needs to be worked out carefully. Neglect of responsibility and role can cause employee demotivation at work, resulting in a non-productive workforce. So the HR department should take responsibility for developing the labour force, looking after the health and safety, the environmental factors at work, motivation, communications. And if those are in place, the chances are the workforce will be motivated. This has been an overview of the planning that's necessary within the HR department to bring about an effective and efficient workforce. That's all I'm going to do in this session. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.